Welcome viewers, you are with me Surbhi Unyal and I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. And we are doing a special lecture series on Introduction to Philosophy under the special segment of symbolic expressions. And we have with us Ms. Manisha, who is going to interpret my lectures in sign language. Moving forward with this series on Introduction to Philosophy, in today's lecture we will be discussing Sāṅkhya Philosophy, which is one of the schools from the Indian philosophy. In the previous lecture, we discussed what is Indian philosophy and what are the various schools that are present in Indian philosophy and how there has been a distinction between various schools of Indian philosophy. Those two distinctions were Astik and Nastik, where we discussed that Astik Darshan, here the schools believe in the authority of Vedas, while in the Nastik tradition, all the schools they do not believe in the authority of Vedas. And from the Astik tradition, we are today discussing Sāṅkhya philosophy. So Sāṅkhya is considered one of the oldest schools of thought, and it falls among the Astik traditions, which is the orthodox philosophical systems, which I had already mentioned that all the schools which fall under the orthodox philosophical systems believe in the authority of Vedas. The sage Kapila is the founder of Sāṅkhya philosophy. The word Sāṅkhya is based upon the Sanskrit word Sāṅkhya, which means enumeration or number. So to understand what the term Sāṅkhya means, or where does this term Sāṅkhya comes from in the Sāṅkhya philosophy, so we can see that the etymological meaning of the term Sāṅkhya can be based on the Sanskrit term Sāṅkhya, which means number or enumeration. So one perspective suggests that the term Sāṅkhya is derived from Sankhya, meaning number, and right knowledge. Right knowledge here refers to comprehending reality by identifying the ultimate constituents of the universe. Another viewpoint posits that Sāṅkhya signifies perfect knowledge concerning the reality. So from these two interpretations, we can say that the term Sāṅkhya could mean number, or it could also mean right knowledge or the perfect knowledge. Now let us try to understand what is the epistemology of Sāṅkhya, that is, what is the theory of knowledge accepted by Sāṅkhya philosophy. So Sāṅkhya recognizes only three valid sources of knowledge, which is Pratyaksh, that is perception, Anuman, that is inference, and Shabd, which is testimony. So basically, if you look at the epistemology in Indian philosophy, various schools have given various means of knowledge. That means the knowledge can be attained only through the valid means, and different schools accept different means. Here Sāṅkhya is accepting only three means of valid knowledge, and those are perception, which is the Sanskrit term of perception is Pratyaksh, then is inference, which the Sanskrit term is Anuman, and testimony, which is Shabd. But what is perception or Pratyaksh, and how do we get knowledge from Pratyaksh? So Pratyaksh refers to direct sensory perception. It is considered the most immediate and reliable means of acquiring knowledge through our senses. So we directly perceive the external world. We directly, we are directly able to see and perceive what's there around us and gain knowledge about its qualities, its characteristics and objects. So basically, we can say that it is the pratyaksh which is the most immediate means of knowing. Because as soon as you come in contact or you encounter something which is so immediate, you get knowledge from that. So, with the help of your various sensory perceptions, through the help of various sensory organs, we are able to get immediate knowledge, or we are able to acquire immediate knowledge. So, that is known as pratyaksh. The second is anuman or inference. Anuman is a process of drawing conclusions based on logical reasonings and inference. By observing specific instances or evidence, one can infer or deduce general principles or truths. Sāṅkhya philosophy recognizes inference as an important source of knowledge, particularly when direct perception is not possible. So there are times when we are not able to directly perceive something in its totality. We are able to perceive only one aspect, and from that what is being perceived, we try to know what is not being perceived. And knowing this which is not being perceived is with the help of inference, because you make a logical reasoning and try to relate things to what you are actually perceiving. And knowing that what is being perceived is related to what is not being perceived, you try to reach to a logical conclusion. So that is known as anuman, where through the process of logical reasoning or inferring, we come to a conclusion. And here we are not able to directly perceive something. We are only able to perceive one or some aspects, and from that we try to relate it to the other aspects which are not immediately present before us. So that is anuman. The third is shabd or testimony. Shabd refers to knowledge gained through authoritative testimony or reliable sources. It involves accepting information or teachings from trustworthy and knowledgeable individuals, whom we also call Apta-Purush. And also we try to know or get knowledge from scriptures or texts. The understanding is that certain sources possess superior knowledge or maybe right knowledge, and by accepting their testimony, one can gain valid knowledge. Fine. So an example that you can take here is, let's say you consider somebody, maybe your teacher, your guru, or anyone whom you think is a knowledgeable person. So whatever that person says, you accept that because you consider that person to be knowledgeable, and along with that you also consider that person to be trustworthy. And you believe that whatever the person is saying will be the right knowledge. So you accept that. Similarly, it goes with scriptures or texts. We accept what is there in the text or as sacred scriptures and consider them to be the source of knowledge. So these three basically, pratyaksh, perception, anuman, inference, and shabd, which is the testimony, are the only three sources of knowledge accepted by Sāṅkhya. moving now to the metaphysics of Sāṅkhya, that here we will try to understand how is Sāṅkhya dealing with the questions of reality, that what is real, how do we, how this real can be understood. So from that aspect, Sāṅkhya philosophy is regarded as a dualist realism. It is dualistic because it holds the doctrine of two ultimate realities, and those two ultimate realities are Prakriti and Purush. Further, it maintains a plurality of Purushas, which is the selves, and the existence of matter, hence treated as pluralistic from that aspect. It is realistic, or you can say it is considered to be holding realism, because they viewed that both matter and the spirit are equally real. It argues that the self, which is the Purush, and the non-self, which is the Prakriti, are radically different from each other, as like the subject and object. As subject can never be the object, similarly an object can never be the subject. Here we need to be very careful when we are saying that Sāṅkhya philosophy is dualistic, because the other aspect that you might have encountered regarding dualism is from a Western idea. And from the Western idea, dualism is often considered as a dualism between mind and the body. So, is it the same kind of dualism that we are seeing here in Sāṅkhya philosophy? Not really. Fine. So, here we are not seeing a dualism between mind and the body. The kind of dualism that we are encountering here is between the Prakriti and the Purush. And here you will see that even mind is considered as a part of Prakriti, which is a physical principle. And Purush is considered to be a so-called mental principle, if you will try to understand it from a Western perspective. So from that idea, you will come to know that it's not the same kind of dualism that is prevalent in the West. The dualism that we are talking about in Sāṅkhya philosophy is more about the dualism of Purush and the Prakriti. Fine, and they describe this dualism between Purush and Prakriti to be radically different from each other. In fact, they are seen as subject and the object relationship, where they are saying that the subject can never be an object and an object can never be a subject. So the few important questions that we deal in the philosophy, or you can say the Sāṅkhya philosophy regarding the metaphysical aspects, are: what is the ultimate cause of the object, and what are the constituents of the universe? In other words, what is the ultimate stuff of which the various objects of the world are made? So it holds that Prakriti is the ultimate or the first cause of all objects, including our mind, body, and sense organs. So it is observed that every effect must have a cause. From this whole idea that Prakriti is the ultimate cause of all objects, it is then realized that everything that is existing must have a cause. So cause and effect are two inseparable components and stand for all sort of creations in the cosmos. Hence, all objects of the world are bounded in the chain of cause and effect relation. So everything that you see, even us, we are here because there has been a cause, since we are the effects of that cause, and everything that you see around you are in this cause and effect relationship. So there cannot be an effect if there was no cause, and if there is a cause, there has to be an effect. And this relationship between cause and effect is known as Sāṅkhya or the theory of causation. Let us now try to understand what is Sāṅkhya. Its doctrine of Prakriti rests mainly on the theory of causation, which is known as Sāṅkhya. So, Sāṅkhya, if you look at Sāṅkhya philosophy, you will understand that how its theory or the doctrine of Prakriti, it rests on this doctrine of causation, which is known as Sāṅkhya. So it is a theory as to the relation of an effect to its material cause. For example, curd was existing in the milk before it comes into existence. So it doesn't come out of nowhere. There has to be a cause. So if there is a curd, how did that curd come into existence? It came into existence because it was already present in the milk. So milk is the cause of the effect, which is the curd. Hence, the effect is not a real beginning or a new creation. It is also this philosophy, or you can say this doctrine, which Sāṅkhya is proposing, is also known as Parinamvad. Fine, because what does it mean? It means that Sāṅkhya believe in Parinamvad. All the material effects are the modification, which is the Parinam of Prakriti. They pre-exist in the eternal bosom of the Prakriti and simply comes out of it at the time of creation and return to it at the time of dissolution. So actually there is nothing absolutely new that is coming up, or absolutely new creation, or absolutely a new beginning. In fact, whatever is there is already prevalent or was already existing in the cause. It's just a modification. You know how things change their modes. So it's this material effect, we can say, is just a modification of the Prakriti, and hence it is known as Parinam. So the effect, you can say, pre-exists in this Prakriti and comes out of it when creation happens, and it returns back to it when there is a dissolution. So there is neither new production nor utter destruction. Production means development or manifestation, or you can say modification. Fine, so it's not an absolute destruction or absolutely new production. It's just a change, or you can say a manifestation or a development. Now, to prove or to support this theory of Sāṅkhya, Sāṅkhya gives 5 arguments in support of this theory. And let us look at what are these 5 arguments. So it says that if the effect does not exist in the cause prior to its operation, none can bring it into existence out of the cause. Fine, so what does it really means is that if the effect was not existing in the cause prior to its origination or its operation, then can we actually bring it into the existence out of the cause even if it was not existing? Not really. Again, why? Because we can bring out something only when it was already existing. So, the example that they give is that blue cannot be turned into yellow even by 1,000 artists because it's not there in it. So, it has to be there in it, only then an effect will be produced. The second one is that the effect is related to its cause. Effect is nothing but the manifestation of the cause. As oil will be produced from oil seeds only, thus effect pre-exists in the material cause in a latent or unmanifest condition. If the effect does not pre-exist in its cause, it becomes a mere non-entity, like a hare's horn or a sky flower, and can never be produced. Fine, so what do we mean to say here is that effect is related to us, or you can say a specific effect is related to a specific cause. So oil can only be produced from oil seeds because it is related to it and it's just a manifestation. If this relation would not have been present, if the effect was not present in the cause, then we cannot talk of its existence or at all. So, if the effect does not pre-exist in the cause, it would be like a mere non-entity. That means it was not existing. And non-existence here, then we are relating it to the sky flowers or hare's horn, which do not really exist. So, this is the second reason that they are giving. The third is, the effect is only a manifestation of its material cause because it is invariably connected with it. The third is that everything cannot be produced out of everything. This suggests that the effect before its manifestation is implicit in its material cause. Fine, so you cannot say that anything can lead to anything else, or an effect can be produced from anything. There has to be a determined relationship between the cause and effect, and only then we can be certain that if this A is present, that means it is going to cause B, or if B is present, we know that it was caused by A, and only A can cause B. So there has to be a necessary relationship here, otherwise anything can come out of anything, and which would be a problem, or which would never be able to would be actually possible. So everything cannot be produced out of everything. There has to be a specific cause which will lead to a specific effect. Then it says that only an efficient cause can produce that for which it is potent. This again means that the effect before its manifestation is potentially contained in its material cause, and production is only an actualization of the potential, which is, you can say, it's the Shakti or the potential cause that it had. Were it not so, then curd should be produced out of water and cloth out of anything, and oil out of sand particles or anything else. So which does not really happen. There has to be a specific relationship here. The last is that the effect is the essence of its material cause and as such identical with it. When the obstructions in the way of manifestation are removed, the effect naturally flows out of its cause. The cause and effect are the implicit and the explicit stages of the same process. The cloth is contained in the threads, the oil in the oil seeds, and the curd in the milk. The effect pre-exists in the material cause. So these are the arguments which were given by Sāṅkhya to prove the theory of Satkaryavad. On the basis of this discussion, in the next lecture, we will see Sāṅkhya's theory on Purush and Prakriti and how this theory of Satkaryavad plays an important role in understanding Prakriti. So, thank you viewers, and we will continue this lecture in our this discussion in our next lecture. So, I would request you to please follow up the lecture to have a better understanding of what is Purush and Prakriti and Sāṅkhya philosophy in totality. Thank you.